If you've ever found yourself wondering whether what you're watching or how much you're watching of it is affecting your focus, your motivation, or even just how you feel day to day, you, my friend, are not alone. Most men don't experience this as something obvious. It doesn't show up all at once. It shows up as low motivation, reduced focus, emotional flatness, or a subtle sense that you're not engaged in your life as you used to be. And because you're still functioning, you're still showing up, right? You're still getting through the day, you don't call it a problem. You call it stress, distraction. You call it a habit, or just the pace of life. But what if the better question isn't, is this an addiction? What if the better question is, what is this doing to my brain over time? This video is brought to you by my HarperCollins published book, Mind Over Explicit Matter. If you're ready to quit porn and reclaim your life mentally and physically, go over to drtrishleigh.com/book. Now this is where everything changes. This, my friend, is the hijack. And the easiest way to understand it is not just as a graph, but as something you can actually feel. So imagine this. You're driving your car, hands on the wheel, heading somewhere that matters to you. And then the driver door opens. Not the passenger side, the driver door. And before you even have time to react, you're physically pushed over into the passenger seat. And someone else is now driving. That's what this level of stimulation does in the brain. These spikes, cue, novelty, escalation, peak, are far beyond what your brain experiences in real life. And dopamine is not just about pleasure, it's about learning. It's your brain saying, this matters, do this again. So when your brain gets trained at that level, it doesn't just enjoy it, it reorganizes around it. Okay, so shift with me for 1 second, because this is where it gets real. This is a picture of me with most of my kids. 2 are missing. And when you look at this picture, a picture like this, it makes you think, oh, everything's good. Everyone's smiling. They're present. Everyone looks together. But what you don't see is the moment right after. I'm going to show you that moment in just a few minutes, because that's us being our real true selves. And this matters because it's very easy to create a moment that looks good, but it's much harder to actually feel good on the inside. What I see over and over again is that when the brain is hijacked at that level, people can still show up for life, but they're not fully in it. They're there, but something is totally missing. So the question becomes, do you just want your life to look good? Or do you actually want to feel it while you're living? That's what I want for you. This is where most men get it wrong, because it does feel like it helps. It feels like a release, a reset, something that takes the edge off. But what's actually happening is not true relief. It's interruption. You are stepping out of discomfort temporarily without resolving anything underneath it. And your brain learns that very quickly, not because it solved the problem, but because it changed your state. So now instead of building the capacity to handle stress or boredom or pressure, now your brain starts outsourcing that job to high stimulation from explicit content. Over time, what felt like help becomes dependency. And if you're being honest with yourself, the relief doesn't last. It just resets the need. And this is where the pattern becomes automatic. Stress, boredom, idle moments, those aren't just situations anymore. They become the triggers. That's when the driver door opens again. And most of the time, you don't consciously decide it. Your brain just moves you in that direction because it has been trained to. That's the hijacker. He doesn't have a face, he doesn't have an identity, just a pattern that runs. And this is not about being weak. It's absolutely about conditioning. Your brain has learned what to do in those moments, and it stops looking for anything else. All right, and then we hit miswire. This is where repetition turns into wiring. A normal dopamine spike repeated over time becomes a strengthened pathway, and your brain starts prioritizing the very thing that is pulling you out of your life. This is neuroplasticity doing its job, just with the wrong input. And this is where men start to feel the shift. Focus doesn't hold the same way anymore. Motivation drops. Real life doesn't feel as engaging. And this is why I say this very, very clearly. Erectile dysfunction is not just a sexual problem. It is a power problem. Power in the brain, because the same system that drives focus and motivation is the system that drives arousal. And when that system is overstimulated, it loses its ability to activate when it actually matters. This isn't just conceptual either, it's measurable. What we see in brain imaging research is that the reward system actually changes. The brain becomes less responsive to normal, healthy rewards and more dependent on high intensity stimulation. Read explicit matter. So this is not just about what you're watching, it's about what your brain is becoming used to. And once that baseline shifts, everything else feels different. Things that should feel good don't land the same. They don't hit in the same way anymore. And if you feel that disconnect where life looks fine, but does not feel the way that it used to, this is why. And not everyone experiences this in the exact same way. Some brains become strained. They're overstimulated, anxious, constantly seeking. Other brains become drained, low energy, low motivation, flat. But these are not separate problems. They are two sides of the same miswired system. The brain swings between overstimulation and depletion, wired then tired, seeking then numb. That pendulum is not random. It is the result of what the brain has been trained on. And this is where life starts to feel flat. Not because your life is flat, but because your brain has been calibrated to something far more intense than real life was ever designed to compete with. So now normal moments don't land the same way. They don't feel as good. Conversation, work progress, connection, they all start to feel underwhelming by comparison. And if you don't understand that, you start chasing more stimulation to try to feel something again. And that is what keeps the loop going. But this, my friend, is not permanent. Neuroplasticity can be your worst enemy like we talked about, or it can be your best friend. The same brain that learned what it's learned can unlearn it. This is the rewire. When you remove those elevated spikes, when you stop feeding the hijacker, the brain recalibrates. It starts responding to normal levels again. You move back into the driver's seat, not by forcing it, but because your brain is now working with you, not against you. Focus stabilizes, motivation becomes consistent, real life starts to feel real again. And that sense of actually being present in your own life returns. So the solution here is not more discipline, it's regulation. You don't fix a miswired brain by trying harder. You fix it by retraining it. And this is where real change starts, not when you force yourself to stop, but instead when your brain no longer pulls you in that direction in the first place. That's what brain training does. It strengthens regulation, it restores balance, and it gives you back the control. And what happens next is usually not dramatic at first. It's subtle, but super powerful. There's more space between impulse and action. You think about something and don't immediately move toward it. Your brain feels quieter, focus holds more easily. The urge doesn't run the show anymore. That's how you know the pattern is changing. Not because you're white knuckling it, but because your brain is actually functioning differently. This is the simplest way to start taking your brain back. Pattern break. Remove what you can. Reduce what you can't remove. Pause before you act. Replace the behavior with something that actually builds your brain instead of draining it. You do not have to flip your world and your life upside down overnight. You just have to stop feeding the pattern consistently. And when you do that, the pattern starts to lose its grip. Okay, I want to bring you back to the fam squad here for a minute, because this is what it's all about. This is it. It's not about removing something from your life. It's about getting your life back. These are the moments that matter, not the ones that look perfect, but the ones where you are actually there for them. You're showing up, you're having fun, where you feel it, where you're engaged, where you're connected. When your brain is regulated, that becomes natural again. You're not forcing presence. Guess what happens? You're just in it. And this is what it looks like on the other side. Focus holds, the urge quiets down, there's less switching, less fragmentation, less inner pull. You, my friend, are back in control. You can stay with what matters, and that is where real confidence comes from. Not forcing discipline, but actually having power over your own brain. This journey is really about who you become. New habits, new hope, new purpose. Because when you change your brain, you literally change your trajectory. You start making different decisions, showing up differently in your life, building something that actually lasts. This is not just about stopping something. It's about stepping into a different version of yourself. So the real question isn't whether this is happening. It's what you're going to do about it. Because the version of you that stays in that loop, that is only one trajectory. And the version of you that understands your brain and takes control of it, that is a completely different life. Different focus, different relationships, different results, different legacy. And you don't get there by hoping it changes. You get there by actually retraining your brain. So if you're serious about that, start by seeing what's actually going on. Go over to drtrishleigh.com and get your brain mapped with me. You can begin the process of becoming the version of yourself that is in control. Because at the end of the day, you either train your brain or it gets trained for you. Think about that. Okay, until next time, please control your brain or it will control you. I'll see you then.